all-purpose garden soil. Valid through 4/16. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
From the 651 Carpets Plus, home of the Next Day Install Studios, this is FM 100.3 KFXN Minneapolis, St. Paul, The Fan.
All right, here we go.
Minnesota Wild are back in action tonight on this very frequency. That's FM 100.3 The Fan. And the beauty of the modern age is you don't have to worry about the frequency. You can get it via the iHeartRadio app. You can listen that way. You don't have to worry about where you are regarding the signal.
Make the fan a preset.
Make the fan a preset and know that it's free of charge. That's the beauty of it.
No tariffs.
I have no doubt that Russo Radio, do you have the fan as a preset on your iHeartRadio app?
I do. It's the only thing that comes up on my iHeartRadio app.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Works out well.
Must listen beyond the pond.
It is a must listen. It's tremendous. And sometimes contentious.
Yeah. It was great last week because Fallness had no voice. It's my favorite type of Fallness.
You loved that. So was it was that the Halvey appearance? Did Halvey fill in on that occasion?
Kev?
No, he just did the pregame show.
He did pregame. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
I think Fallness tried to gut it.
I did. Russo didn't listen. I did the entire show, and I was fine.
Well, your voice, by definition, Fallness is gravelly.
I know.
Right? I mean, that's part of the beauty of the Fallness voice.
I guess. Yeah, it was pretty bad though for about 48 hours.
I'm glad it's.
But we're back.
Yeah.
First time beauty and fallness have ever been uttered in the same sentence. Not ironically.
So chilly.
Yeah. Go ahead, enjoy your interview from my studio.
He's so magnanimous, right? He takes all this abuse.
He does.
And yet still
That's why
allows
we love him.
Russo to hang out.
As you say, you only rip the people that you love. So
it's 100%.
you would never do that to somebody that you don't like.
Yeah, 100% true. So the 566th and maybe final regular season start for your guy, a home start of his career for your guy, Flower. Marc-Andre Fleury is tonight, correct?
Yes, just talking to a lot of the guys in the locker room today, especially Marcus Foligno, I think that they obviously they're getting a boost from the returns of Kaprizov and Eric Sinek, but I think they all, to a man, want to really put their best effort in tonight to protect Flower and deliver him a victory here in what's going to be his final, what we think is at least final start. I don't want to say final home appearance because, if that Tuesday game against Anaheim is a game where the Wild are already sort of locked into a playoff spot and maybe even playoff positioning, it wouldn't shock me if they start Gus, play him a couple periods, give him a little tune-up for the playoffs, because if he doesn't play Tuesday, then he's going at a minimum 8 days without a start before game one. But maybe you play Flower in the third period or throw him in for a swan song last TV timeout, kind of like an exhibition game, and give him that last proper send-off on a night where it's fan appreciation night and the giveaway is a Flower poster and all that stuff. But he is under the impression that tonight is his last home start. His agents rushed in for the game. He's got friends and family coming in for the game. I assume that some friends and family will also come to the Saturday game in Vancouver, presuming he starts. But the sad part is that his mom and his sister were actually just in town and just left, so they can't make it back for tonight. At least that was as of yesterday. But yeah, tonight will be it for Flower.
Flower, in your piece, says, my role is to be backup and support Gus, and I'm fine with it. Do we have a good handle on what impact any goalie, maybe particularly in this case, this specific goalie, Fleury, can have on the starter in terms of how much conversation goes on, how much mental support there can be? In the end, the goaltender's got to make the saves, right? Nobody can make this. The backup goaltender, even with wisdom and knowledge and experience, can't make the save for him. But have you talked to Flower and I guess Gus Bus about that particular issue and how they've worked that out?
I mean, obviously two very, very different styles on the ice. I think with the value of your backup goalie or your second goalie in any team is more off the ice and support. And you see during TV timeouts, Gus is actually one of those goalies that comes to the bench every TV timeout, and he immediately goes right over to Flower, and you can see they have a couple words, and sometimes You could see that Flowers actually kind of either giving him a pep talk or some advice or things like that. Where where I think that Flower has really influenced Gus is the pranks. He is now one of those that will last. He's going after guys. He just recently did something to Foligno that's been a back and forth thing all year. So Gus has learned definitely that part of the Marc-Andre Fleury. But I genuinely think, and I've thought this for some time, and I know that Wild fans roll their eyes at the whole, sometimes, the good in the room and the room being good and all that stuff that you always hear in hockey. But I really think that one big reason why that Bill Guerin wanted to put Marc-Andre Fleury and parachute him right into this locker room 4 years ago, or 4 seasons ago, I should say, is just that the fact that he could help change a culture or establish one, a looseness, but a winning demeanor in there. And, you might roll your eyes at that or not, but I think that even beyond him leaving this organization as a player, I think that culture that he's helped change in there is going to have a lasting effect. And I don't think he's leaving the organization. I think Bill Guerin is going to do everything he can to, help him start the next phase of his career. He told us yesterday that he'd like to get into management. The coaching is not something that is really something that's interests him. And Bill Guerin has that. I mean, you see Derek Stepan around a lot, Alex Goligoski a lot. Obviously, Matt Hendricks was originally hired by Paul Fenton, but is in the organization still. Was first assistant to director of player development. Now he's the Iowa Wild GM and still very much in development. So I think that he's going to be around this organization a lot, and that's always going to be good to have a Marc-Andre Fleury go down in the locker room and talk to a young goalie or a young player and just be around to keep things loose.
All right. So the headline news tonight is, as you reported earlier today, according to your sources, the return of Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek. So tell me if you feel just as certain about that now.
Yeah.
And secondly, what the approach is going to be with them tonight. Are they hitting it full? Is it, we're going to kind of ease them into it? What are you hearing?
I don't think they'll ease them into it, and I don't think you can ease either of them into it. Like, first shift, Eriksson Ek on a stoppage is going to get into a goalmouth scrum. It's just him. It is confirmed. It's official now. Both Kaprizov was activated off long-term injured reserve. Eriksson Ek off injured reserve. Brendan Gauntz and Devin Shore were reassigned to Iowa, which they had to do to get cap compliant. And also eventually they're going to need Cameron Karate is still on the lineup. They're going to need him to go down as well to make sure they can sign Ziv Buya when his college career ends here in the next hopefully 4 days, but maybe 1 or 2. I think that we're going to see tonight that Zuccarello, Rossi, and Kaprizov are going to be a line, and I think that we're going to see you remember the old Grief line with Greenway, Foligno, and Eriksson Ek and how good they were. I think this is going to be the beginning of something that they're going to try and have Foligno back with Eriksson Ek, but maybe a Boldy on the right. And I think that they like the way that Marcus has been playing lately. He's been great defensively all year, but he really added a lot with Rossi and Boldy. Obviously scored the huge goal the other night. And so I think that they're going to see if that can work. And then that gets guys into proper positions. So now suddenly you have a third line that might be Johansson, Goudreau, and Nyquist, and a fourth line that's Trenyan, Hartman, and tonight Brazo, maybe eventually Hinostroza, we'll see. But it gets people into it. Just the domino effect deepens the lineup just naturally by having Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek not only in the lineup, but on 2 separate lines. It gets the power play back together. It was weird yesterday because yesterday at practice, they got a little contact, but they were on the 5th line. They weren't on the regular line rushes, and you didn't know what was going on. And they were real vague after whether or not they were going to be able to return today. But right when I woke up today, I looked at my phone and I had some pretty good sourcing that said that they were going to basically be back. And that's obviously a huge boost to this team. And I was wondering all yesterday, like, if not now, when? Like, if they're not playing against San Jose, how do you throw them in just against Calgary? So this is a big game tonight. If you win this game, and then maybe if Anaheim somehow beats Calgary tonight, now suddenly go into that game on Friday, and you can pretty much cinch a playoff spot. But tonight they've got to figure out a way to win, not let the returns of Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek just say, all right, everybody takes a deep sigh of relief, and now you against a team that can be dangerous, you suddenly are stunned. So I think tonight is still another game that they got to keep the pedal on the metal, and we'll see how Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek do.
So in Kaprizov's case, what's going to tell you that, hey, he's coming back here flying pretty fast, that we're going to be able to see the best of Kaprizov pretty quickly. What are the signs that you will be looking for tonight that will tell you, hey, maybe this thing can get ratcheted up very quickly?
Yep. Now, first of all, I do expect rust. Even just watching him in practice, catching pucks, making passes, I do think that we're going to see that for a while. He's missed a lot of time. But what I'll be looking for are those bursts, the edge work, and to make sure he's not grimacing, because he did have, significant surgery. It's the type of surgery that you have to be confident that you're completely healthy to be able to play that the way you want to play. So that's what I'll be watching. And then, you want to see him take those bumps. We saw very little yesterday. Like, I'm telling you, very brief, like one shift of contact from like Johnny Merrill. That's what I want to see, is how they brush off on both of them, brush off on checks, initiate checks. And then on the bench, I will be watching to see how they're recovering, because the one thing about Kaprizov is he is so good at just, between shifts. Like, you just think he could play forever and ever and ever and not come off the ice. And so that's another thing that I'll be watching, is how is he sort of, what's his body language when he goes back to the bench and sits there and things like that.
Let's get back to you laid out some of it regarding the Wild's playoff situation and where the Flames are here. So we right now are 2 points behind the Blues. That would be for the top wild card spot. We are 4 points ahead of Calgary, right? And then we've played one more game. They have the game in hand there. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And the Wild have the game, and the Wild have a game in hand on the Blues.
On the Blues.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly it. Okay. You mentioned the Blues are at Edmonton tonight. Flames are, as you also said, taking on the Ducks. So are we at, because I look at 4 points and I go, and the fact we still got to play Calgary, it's like, well, we still can't slip up here.
Yeah, no.
Or it could get funky.
Yeah, like tonight is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you win this and you go 6 points up at least until the Anaheim game's over. But if they lose, now you are really in a great position going into your last 3 games. But you're right. I mean, it's not a guarantee, especially if the Wild somehow lose tonight and then they go to Calgary and lose that game. So, they've got to keep their foot on the gas. This is the position that they put themselves in. Especially by, only getting 2 out of 6 points on that road trip and winning one of their previous 7 games. But it also shows you how massive that victory the other night was against Dallas. Like, they don't win that game, and it's a 2-point thing cushion today. And now everybody is tight. So, and then it also would have paint the complexion that they're rushing Kaprizov and Eriksson back because they're in this desperate situation, just being 2 up on Calgary. Where tonight, I think it makes it more, logical that these guys are genuinely ready and not being rushed back.
Is Eriksson the second best player on this team?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely second best forward. He just does so much in so many different areas. Whether it's taking that big draw at the end of games, whether it's being first over the boards on the penalty kill, net front on the power play. The engine that really, gets this team going. I think this, as much as this might sound stupid, I think this rest the last 2 months will be good for him, because he was, first of all, this was his 5th separate time out of the lineup this year. He has had an injury-plagued year. He's only played 41 games, and it just felt like he was never getting healthy, because he was always coming back and coming back and coming back. And it was so clear he was dealing with everything from a back to myriad leg injuries to the broken nose at the beginning of the year. Like, it just started terribly for him, starting with game 2 when he got elbowed in the face by Adam Larson and missed those couple games, wasn't on the bird to Winnipeg, things like that. So I just think also just having this last 6 to 7 weeks off got him probably much more healthier than he was. And I think going into the playoffs, that'll be absolutely huge for him and the team.
What a couple people had texted already wanting to get your view of what you think the defensive pairings will look like when Bouillon gets here. What do you think? I
think the defensive pairings when Bouillon gets here is going to be exactly what they are now. I think that once Middleton is back in the lineup, he'll be back with Faber, Brodin with Spurgeon, and I think Merrill with Bogosian. I think that's how it'll start. And then Bouillon will have to work themselves in, whether he plays because of injury, whether he plays because of poor performance or they're down in a series and want some sort of spark. But, this is somebody that is going to get here with a day probably of practice on Monday. And then, I assume that he'll make his NHL debut on Tuesday against Anaheim. But, the indications that I've got is that right now they want Merrill and Bogosian in the lineup because they had a different complexion than everybody else. To throw Bouillon in right away, I just don't know if they're going to do that. We will see. But if this, let's put it this way, if his season ended a couple of weeks ago and they signed him, I think, and then he was practicing and with the team and all that stuff, I think they could teach him from a defensive standpoint. I think it'd be a lot different than just throwing him in right now, but we will see. A lot of things could change very quickly in these last 4 games. And we know that Boyum's a very, very special player. And I know where Wild fans stand on this. I'm sure everybody listening would love Boyum to just, that it's a no-brainer that he should play over Johnny Merrill. But they need penalty killers. And they need people that they could trust right away, and to throw him into the meat grinder of a playoff series right off the hop. This is not like Brock Faber, who is 2 years older essentially and a more of a defensive lockdown guy and things like that. But I will say, remember when Brock Faber got here, the Wild said the exact same things. He's not playing in the playoffs. And then he was so good his last 2 games, he got into the playoffs and played every game. So we'll see.
646, if you have a question or observation for Russo Radio, who's joining us from the X. Wild back in action tonight against the Sharks are dreadful, right? I mean, this is so can we call this loser proof?
No, nothing's loser proof. I mean, I thought the Islander game was loser proof and it wasn't, right? Yeah. It should be loser proof with Eriksson and Kaprizov back. But look, this is a young team that has an incredible amount of skill with guys like Celebrini, the number 1 overall pick last year, Will Smith, I think number 2 pick a couple years ago, William Eklund, some really good veterans and guys like Tyler Toffoli and Barclay Goudreau and players like that. So nothing's loser proof. Anything can happen, but this is a game the Wild definitely should win.
How should Wild fans feel about the starting goaltender as we get ever closer to the postseason?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's been fine. I mean, I think they've been probably running him into the ground a little bit. That's why I do like the fact that Flower is playing today, and that really, we might see Gus get 2 more starts, but not even get 2 games. Like, I think he's got to rest up a little bit because they've really ridden him down the stretch here. But for the most part, he's probably been their best player here the last month and a half. Obviously there have been some big goals by Boldy. Rossi's starting to come on right now. I think Zuccarello's been pretty consistent. Their blue liners have been really good. But to me, Gus on a team that really was struggling to score the last 2-3 months and has had a lot of pressure on him. He's been, put into battle-tested games and had to be really good. And for the most part, he's been good. So I know there have been some leakers lately. I think that is more a product of the fact that they are playing him so much. And so I think this is good to give him a couple days off here, play him against Calgary. Then he gets another couple days off, play him a little bit against Anaheim, or maybe the full game. We'll see. And then he's got like 5 days to rest up for the playoffs.
What is Russo's, this is from Paul, expectation for the Wild's playoff ceiling?
I feel better about it today than I did yesterday. But look, I remember talking to you back in December, and when they were the best team in the league, or at least had the most points in the league, and saying to you, like, this has been going on so long that it's not a fluke. And then they took Kaprizov out of the lineup, and then they had injury after injury after injury, and then their game started to waver, and it's really been a slog here the last 3 months. I think they are capable of winning rounds. I just don't know if they're going to be able to rediscover that game that made them so good those first 2.5 months of the season. That's my biggest concern. Winnipeg has just been playing great hockey for so long. That's their most likely playoff scenario. Vegas, if they play Vegas is a team that just almost seems to never lose at home. They also are playing just battle-tested hockey right now and have been really, really good for some time. So, and then we obviously know Dallas. I think that any of these teams are beatable. It's just whether or not the Wild are going to be able to find their games, or Eriksson and Kaprizov up to snuff and ready for what's about to happen. Because Winnipeg has really loaded up with guys like Tanev, Luke Schenn, these physical players that are going to not just take it easy on Kaprizov and Ek if the Wild play the Jets. So that's the biggest concern I have. I also just haven't loved their grit here the last month. They're not the biggest, fastest team. And so we're starting to see Trenyon play more physically. We're definitely starting to see Brazo play more physically. So there's still a lot that they've got to prove. And until we all, they haven't won a playoff round since 2015. Until we see it, them go up against a team and really dictate it. I just don't know if we can all pick them. The one thing I will say is if they play the Jets, I think it's important those first 10 minutes to really pepper Hellebuck, because as good as Hellebuck has been this year, everybody, the storyline going into the playoffs is, well, he's got to prove it in the playoffs because he's had 2 miserable playoffs in a row. So if you can get to him early and put that doubt in not only the fans but their minds, the teammates and Hellebuck's, I think that would really move the Wild going into a playoff series against the Jets.
What chance do you give us to actually, forget, just holding off Calgary, actually catching and passing the Blues for the?
Well,
for
I
the
mean,
top
it's
wildcard
there.
spot?
I mean, and a lot will depend. I mean, obviously, of the 3 matchups tonight of playoff teams vying for position here, the St. Louis Blues have the toughest matchup, right? I mean, they could easily lose to the Oilers tonight, and if that's the case, if the Wild win, the Wild are back in that spot. And then they'd have a game in hand still. So, you know what I'm hoping for? I haven't hitted my selfishness here. Like, I want the Wild to go to Vegas, but that is completely selfish reasons. I actually think that the Wild would have a tougher time against Vegas than they would against Winnipeg, which might sound foolish since Winnipeg is first in the conference. But I just the Wild just don't really play Vegas well, which is funny because the first 7 or 8 or 9 meetings, the Wild were playing Vegas better than any team in the league, and it's just kind of taken an about face the last couple years. I will say this year's a little bit weird because all 3 games were second of back-to-backs for the Wild and tough travel and all that stuff. So I don't know if you can really take this year's efforts as gospel, but look, they absolutely can catch St. Louis. I watched that St. Louis Jets game the other day, and the Jets really took it to them. I thought St. Louis looked tired. And even the last couple of games of St. Louis's 12-game winning streak, you could just see they were sort of getting lucky, getting last-second goals to force overtime, then winning in overtime. The way it works in all winning streaks in pro sports. Usually at the end, you're starting your game's starting to slip, but you're still able to find a way to get those victories. But I think that we've seen the last couple games that they haven't been as good.
Another texter wants to know, because I don't think I haven't had you on the air in a while myself. I don't know if Guardsy did, but what's your opinion on the Middleton hit against the Islanders?
Yeah.
How it wasn't 5 minutes is for this texter still very hard to understand.
And to Bill Guerin too. Bill went ballistic after that game.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I think it was a major. I don't think it was a suspension. I think it was uncharacteristic of Bo Horvat. I talked to Middleton this morning, and Middleton told me that I asked him if Bo reached out to him. He said, yeah, but I made him sit on it for a day to make him feel guilty. Because he also didn't think it was an intelligent hit. But he eventually texted back. And look, the only thing that matters now, right, is that Middleton is healthy and fine. I think he felt like he was hit by a bus the last 2, 3, 4 days, but he was on the ice today, is getting closer to returning. And I don't think it'd be smart for him to play Calgary. I think, I don't know what he's feeling, but I think it would be smarter to just, let him wait till the Vancouver game and not put him in a second of a back-to-back situation. But thank goodness he's okay. But I thought it was a terrible hit. Yeah.
And that was where Guerin didn't he yell at you guys?
Yeah.
Don't talk to Heinze about
this.
This.
Go talk to that effing bleep hole.
Yes.
And, the only thing is that I'm not allowed to go talk to that effing bleep hole. So we're not. Yeah,
it was back in the day.
But back in the day, we were allowed to have reporters go down and talk to the refs as cool, but we're not allowed to do that in the NHL anymore. So usually we're allowed to talk to the supervisor, who is Paul Dvorsky, former referee that night, or reach out to Stephen Walcom and maybe he'll text back. But even if we were allowed to talk to the refs, like as a pool reporter, I don't know, like there's got to be some sort of boundary, right? You can't just a minor versus major, go talk to the ref every single time. So there's got to be, it's almost got to be rule interpretations to talk to the refs. It can't be just every subjective call. And the reality is he called the minor, should have been a major. I think his reasoning to John Hines was absurd. But the most important thing is that the Wild got out of Long Island with, Middleton upright.
So there is no such thing as a pool report in the NHL anymore?
No pool reporters. Yep.
Well,
I vividly remember being pool reporters back in the day, and they just at some point got rid of it. Like I remember in the '99 Stanley Cup Final, one of the games, not the game with Brett Hull's foot in the crease, but earlier there was something where I had to go down to the referee's room, and I was the pool reporter for all the people that were covering it. And so that we used to have them, and at some point they just stopped. So I don't know when.
Yeah, I guess I was unaware of that. I had no idea. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think the NHL is like the only league that doesn't offer any transfer.
That's true.
Even I love what the NBA does and putting out the report after all these games, and obviously we see it all the time in football. I think Seifert's always been a pool reporter, and 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 I think baseball you're allowed to talk to umps at times. So yeah, hockey does not allow that.
Odd. Have fun tonight.
Yeah.
We will chat next week and even more often as we get into the postseason. Thanks, man. As always.
Absolutely. Take care. See
Thanks,
ya.
Russo. That is